Warning: viewer discretion is advised, as images or stories may be disturbing. The Frowny Dog, Chapter One, Episode 3. It was cold, almost freezing, enough to cause immature frostbite on open skin. Peter Wilson was walking home from work at the local vineyard, serving about 8 bottles worth of wine, attending a couple birthdays, handing out a steak or two, but that was normal for him. As he walked down the sidewalk, bombarded by the silent darkness that swallowed him, the same that slithered from the alleys of towering buildings, he thought about the vineyard. The sweet scent of cherries on cheesecake, the bitter aftertaste of Merlot. It was better than where he lived, where instead of the fresh smells of an expensive kitchen was replaced with exhaust and rancid brick mortar. He knew he could afford a better place than a damp apartment. He knew that he deserved better. Any open place open for a down payment was away from the vineyard. His present home was at least a mile or two, but it was worth the walk. He actually asked for more hours. He didn't care about the extra work because it was good money, better than other jobs he had taken part of in the past. The deep rhythm of relaxation had taken halt in his mind. His footfalls were in sync with the rhythm of his heart. The cold air put his muscles at ease. He put his hand deep within his pockets of his jacket, each knuckle tender from typing on a vintage cash register. Peter exhaled slightly, shivering only suddenly as the breath escaped his lungs. His glance wandered from the sidewalk to a rusted construction site brooding on the other side of the road. A mass of wooden flesh scaled to a decayed height, rotting vigorously at the pace the wind provided. Obvious signs of vandalism had been tattooed upon various surfaces. The first thought to grasp his mind was abandonment or a massive fire. But then he started to think. A fire in a building that size would have surely been on the news. So he checked that off pretty quickly, leaving him only with abandonment as a primary source of realization. That's what he regretted. See, Peter wasn't just a hard worker, but a curious one. And he knew that curiosity got people into trouble. But until that urge is satisfied, it would bug him for the remainder of his mortal life. Giving into his primal desire to explore, he pattered off his course, looked both ways, and crossed the street in a hurry. In his heart, a rush of excitement, mystery, and fear swam over him. The mere instinct of seeing the unknown was a thrill pumping through his veins. The sticky smell of urine and evaporated booze festered within his nostrils. Once Peter got to the building's entrance, it was almost entirely eaten away by the elements. He rummaged through his pants and found his keys, held them in front of him, and flickered the portable flashlight, which didn't help the situation much at all. Irritated, he shut off the light and stuffed the keys back into his pocket. He ventured into the building, his shoes sifting through a mass of crinkled leaves and molded piles of trash. The psychosis of what's in the dark began to settle. Probably nothing. No monsters, no serial killers, no psychopaths. Everything is fine. Just fine. He thought to himself, uttering a forced laugh as he ventured deeper into the blackness. After about 10 minutes of walking, he began to feel alone and afraid. Without the aid of a flashlight, he couldn't see clearly. Whatever he was stepping on now was bulged out, moistened, or was flourishing with the aroma of a sewer. The void around him was salivating, shuddering that it was hungry. He could hear it whisper to him, saying that it knew where he was. Peter was developing a sense of fear now, pure terror. His heart pumped faster, and his eyes mistook the shadows for its thrashing form that became flush with the building's skeletal structure. I can hear the blood pumping in your heart. I can smell it coursing through your veins. It sounded like the gravelly voice came from all corners. An intelligent gloom wanted to devour him whole. His mind fumbled with its thoughts, lost in the bestial entity called the dark. A patch of moonlight glittered through a mist of dust motes in the wall. Seeing this, he began to walk faster towards the opening. There was nothing worth the loss of his sanity in here. But as he made it to the exit, a police officer patrolling the ground came around the corner at the same time, catching Peter in a no trespassing zone, where nobody was allowed in the area except for the officer. Peter knew this before the officer could speak, as the flashlight in the eyes and the urge to run became sudden. What are you doing here? This is a no trespassing area. The officer spoke with a harsh monotone, constantly fixing the light directly into Peter's eyes. This feeling didn't make Peter feel okay. As a sweat formed, the jolt of a headache kicked into his mind, while a faint ringing flooded his ears. He reached his hand to his nose, feeling a mild condensation begin to stream under his nostrils. Then when he wiped it, his heart froze. There was blood smeared on the bridges of his fingers, dark and bursting with the sticky sweet smell of gore. His eyes floated up to the officer's face, but they didn't stop until his expression fell aghast to the horrific sight near the cop. A monster caught them both, silently, carefully, drooling with canine intellect from its grimace of yellow teeth. It lurked from the sidelines in rags, rabid eyes frenzied with madness, perched upon the sight of two bodies. That was when Peter's curious conundrum rampaged in the terror. It wanted them there. As the thought sunk in, the monster darted on grotesque limbs, almost instantly within the vicinity of the policeman in seconds. Peter darted for the floor as the officer was pummeled with powerful predatory force to the ground. The man screamed as the creature clamped its jaws upon his neck. An explosive splash of blood burst outwards, staining the beast's muzzle in crimson. The officer cried out again, but it was harshly cut off as the beast pried the man's head away from his own body, tossing it off to the side for a later endeavor. Peter began to cry himself, blood popping in bubbles out of his nose as his attire was splattered. He remained curled in a ball on the floor, listening to the horrific tears of the corpse being mangled into a pleasurable pile. The teeth of the creature brutally tore the cadaver open, exposing the major organs instantly. He could smell the gore riddle the air with maddening aromas. The monster crooned as it fed, emitting a deep-throated hyena chuckle as it bore into its prize with ease. Peter could feel slabs of the devoured thrusts against his curled form. It laughed, snarling the body into positions of agony. Its maddening eyes were emotionless, thriving with insanity and bloodlust. Its jaws, although lush with giggles, was fiercely molded into a frown. almost as if it was born with that expression. Peter wailed softly as he gazed upon the horror, standing up slowly to run away, lighted by the deceiving nature of the moon. But since he was too fixed on feasting in scarlet terror, Peter ran, sprinting as fast and as far away as he could from the frowny-faced dog. Fearful tears slithered down his cheeks as the wind frosted them against his face. And as he ran home, blood stained in blood, his body stained in blood from head to toe, he could hear the monster howl, satisfied. Hello, everyone, and I hope you guys enjoyed the Frowny Dog in all of his glory. And remember, this is chapter 1, so more chapters of the Frowny Dog saga will be coming. The second chapter will probably be next week. And remember, like and subscribe, and hope to see you next Saturday. Okay, bye, everyone.